Generation 1 Pokemon gameplay, the noble art of boxing, seemingly two very different things. Pacifism versus violence, blue versus red, mathematics and logic versus precise brutality. For those of you who haven't watched my first video, I decided I will take on a challenge of Pokemon Nuzlocking that will take me all the way from Pokemon Red to the currently hardest custom Pokemon ROM hack that is Pokemon Run and Bun. This means I will beat all of the vanilla games in order they came out, and then transfer to the popular ROM hack, starting from the less difficult ones and finishing with Run and Bun. And you will be there to join me for the craziest journey of our lifetime. All off the specific rules will be explained throughout the video for a finer gameplay experience. In the world in which we are about to enter, Nuzlocking and fighting will be fused into one being, one universe, and I shall be the main protagonist, or, as per today's fashionable expression, the man in the arena. Be that as it may, this is a story of how I beat my first opponent and my first Nuzlocking challenge. This is a story of how I landed a body shot on Generation 1 Pokemon. So, we all know that Generation 1 Pokemon games are Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, and Pokemon Yellow. For the people from Japan, there is also Pokemon Green, but I am an uncivilized caveman from Bosnia, so I won't be playing this piece of shit. As the first step of my challenge, I am tackling these one by one, with slight rule additions. You can find the complete rule set in my first video, so be sure to check that. The short version is this: standard Hardcore Nuzlocke Rules, banned setup moves, banned encore, substitute, screens, etc., plus one additional blow to my training camp. The champions from each and every vanilla Nuzlocke I beat are, from the moment they enter the Hall of Fame, banned for the rest of the challenge. Once they become champions, they are forced to retire and live forever like specters in the Hall of Fame trophy room. If I encounter them in one of the next games, I simply treat it as a duplicate encounter and roll again. These rules are specifically designed to weaken all challengers and make you think a bit more about which Pokemon to champ, because champing all of the strong Pokemon at the beginning could lead to a scarcity of encounters later, and us to being wobbled and even knocked the fuck out by the more difficult vanilla games that are waiting at the end of the road. For now, we are strapping our gloves on and getting ready for a banger against our first opponent, Pokemon Red.
And these guys just flapping gums at each other any chance they get. The fight clock is brought to you by Modelo.
We meet Professor Oak and start the adventure by naming our character accordingly. I name our rival others based on life experience, and am thrown into Kanto, sexy and ready to go. My mom sends me to Oak's lab, where his grandson informs me Oak ain't there. I decide to go on the mission armed with only my fists and attractive exterior, but Oak comes out of nowhere and summons me back to his lab. There he gives me a choice of one of 3 Pokemon, and I choose Bulbasaur, mainly because he cleans up first 2 gyms. My rival, a vagina that he is, chooses Charmander and challenges me for a battle. I mop the floor with him easily and go on with my adventure. I then deliver the Oaks parcel and start catching my first encounters. I decided I will skip mentioning encounters throughout this challenge, since there is going to be a lot of them, and will mention only the ones that are OP or have a specific tactical purpose. Also, the videos will be constructed in the following manner. I will only analyze and describe gym battles and important boss fights in all of the games, because most of my videos will contain 2 or more Nuzlockes being fused into one video. I do it like this because I want to skip the irrelevant parts and the boredom of making 20 videos of vanilla Nuzlockes. But fear not, dear followers, all of the important fights will be analyzed, and there will be many interesting extras added to all of the videos. Now let's go back to Kanto. I clean up Brock with a couple of Vine Whips from Bulbasaur, and do the same to Misty with Ivysaur. Lieutenant Surge is also trivialized by the Diglett I caught in Diglett's cave, and Poison/Ground Nidoking that also can't be touched by electric-type Pokemon. After failing to set up a date, I kill Erica's Victreebel with Pidgeotto, Tangela with Nidoking, then put Vileplume to sleep with Gloom and finish him with Butterfree. The next important fight is the first fight against Rocket Boss Giovanni in Rocket Hideout. Realizing my Gloom doesn't have grass moves, I start thinking content-wise and send out Butterfree to sleep powder everyone. This dance with death grants Butterfree a total of 2 kills. The last one is Kangaskhan, which I finish with my Raticate. The next 2 gym leaders, Koga and Sabrina, have the same level cap of 43, so I go into the Koga fight underleveled. I choose my Dugtrio because C in Gen 1 critical hit chance is derived from the speed of a Pokemon. To make things simple, the faster the Pokemon is, the bigger chance it has for landing a critical hit. That means that a Pokemon with 110 base speed like Dugtrio will crit very often. In Generation 1 Pokemon, Dugtrio's crit chance is 23.44%, making him one of the best encounters in the first 3 games. He proves this fact by critting 2 times in 4 attacks against Koga. After beating the Weezing with a sneaky pre-self-destruct dig, we already have 5 badges. The next big fight is against rival others in Sylph Company. I sweep most of his Pokemon with the also fast and also overpowered Electrode, then switch to Raticate on the Alakazam. I get hit to about half health with Confusion and decide to go for one of the hardest balls history has ever seen. Namely, if Raticate misses Hyper Fang here, doesn't kill or doesn't flinch with it, there is a large chance he will crumble to the next Confusion. Still, a baller that I am, I decide to go for it. The Big G Raticate flinches the Alakazam, and then, deservedly so, sends him to the Shadow Realm with a quick attack. Seaking finishes the Charizard, and we move to the boss, Giovanni. Long story short, Nidoking Brute forces his way through the first 2 Mons, and Seaking floods the next 2 with a little bit of help from Pidgeot. The first thing I notice about Sabrina is that in this game she possesses a large and, may I say, completely unnecessary whip in her hand. I realized that in 1996 this move wasn't as sexually suggestive as it is in 2025, but still, bro, get her a spoon or something. Completely distraught by her accessory, I managed to knock out the first 3 Pokemon with Dugtrio, then finish Alakazam with Exeggutor. Then I use Seaking to flood Blaine and Giovanni and head for the Pokemon League. One last fight is a rival fight on Route 22. I nuke the Pidgeot with Electrode, then do the rest of them with the Lapras I got in Sylph Company. All I got to do is my first ever Elite 4 cook and I am free to knock out Pokemon Red. After about half an hour, I come up with the following 6 big ballers, my first ever Elite 4 team. Electrode, with Thunderbolt, Thunder Wave, Flash, and Explosion. Exeggutor, with Strength, Hypnosis, Psychic and Leech Seed. Seaking, with Surf, Waterfall, Horn Drill, and Blizzard. Arbok, with Fissure, Glare, Double Edge, and Body Slam. Aerodactyl, with Fly, Sky Attack, Hyper Beam, and Fire Blast. Butterfree, with Psybeam, Solar Beam, Sleep Powder, and Poison Powder. Now, if you haven't watched the beginning of the video, or my first video, be sure to check that out for my rule set. Before some of you ask why I didn't simply champ 3 or 4 Pokemon, since it is enough to beat this Elite 4, I didn't do it because I can't. I added a rule of having to champ all 6 Pokemon in every game. My logic was slapping a couple of overpowered guys, like Aerodactyl, on top of a couple of shitsters, like Butterfree and Arbok. I could have also champed Dugtrio, but I wanted to keep him as a future encounter, since he sweeps Lieutenant Surge and Koga. Locked and loaded, sexy and ready, with malicious intent on my mind and in my cock, I enter the first room, ready to hand out slaps on sight. The first Elite 4 member is the Ice-type master, Lorelei, who was trivialized by my Pokeball from hell, Electrode. This is also important. On the Lapras, I decide to switch to my Seaking. The amateurs among you might say that I should have simply nuke him with one more Thunderbolt, but little do you know. In Gen 1, every move has at least 1 in 256 chance to miss, and since Electrode is extremely valuable for me winning this Elite 4, I went Seaking. Next up is Bruno, master of toxically masculine types. He threatens to grind me down with superior power, but puts up such a meager fight that my Seaking almost de-evolves into Goldeen out of pity, while dancing on the dead bodies of his Pokemon. Third Elite 4 member is Agatha, the master of ghost types. I tried to delete the lead Gengar with Butterfree, but, in a stroke of genius, she switches to her Golbat. I switch to Electrode and proceed with deleting Golbat and the following 3 Mons with it. On the second Gengar, I switch to my Arbok for a content Fisher play. When that doesn't work, I glare the beast and go to Aerodactyl to finish it. The last Elite 4 member is Lance, the Dragon Tamer. I delete Gyarados, the 2 Dragonairs, and the Aerodactyl with Electrode. On the Dragonite, I switch to Exeggutor. I live Hyper Beam on half and try to Leech Seed for safety but miss. Then I simply send out Seaking and use Blizzard to send it to the Shadow Realm. The only one left is the champion, rival others. Brimming with confidence, I step up and throw a faint slap at him. He flinches for a moment, and I move a couple of steps back. After shaking his head to recover from the trauma, he finally becomes capable of action, so we start the dance. I nuke the lead Pidgeot with Electrode. Alakazam comes out. I switch to Executor to realize his purpose and defeat the Alakazam, then decide to milk my guy for value to the max and use him to defeat Rhydon also. I defeat his Executor with Aerodactyl, then use Electrode to beat Gyarados and Charizard. These simple moves lead me to knocking out my first opponent and guaranteeing my first Nuzlocke victory. In order for us all to follow my challenge better, I present to you the sheet I am making for all of the Vanilla Games champions. This sheet will, of course, be updated as I beat every Vanilla Nuzlocke. All that is left is adding our 6 big ballers to the sheet and taking a quantum leap towards our next opponent, Pokemon Blue.
And these guys just flapping gums at each other.
We again start by naming ourselves and the rival accordingly. We choose Bulbasaur again so we can sweep the first 2 gyms easily. I again nuke Brock and Misty with my Ivysaur and Lieutenant Surge with Diglett. I beat Erica with Fearow and Raticate. Giovanni won with Weepinbell and Koga with my Kadabra. Or I would, hadn't this happened. Severely depressed and with vengeance on my mind, I go to face my rival in Sylph Company. I use Thunderbolt Haunter to beat the lead Pidgeot, then continue using him to delete Execute and Gyarados. Fearow nukes Alakazam, and I use Nidoqueen to defeat the Charizard. Weepinbell takes care of Giovanni, and I move forward. I use Fearow to beat all of Sabrina's Mons, Poliwhirl to flood Blaine, and then his evolution to clear Giovanni. As for the rival fight, Haunter beats the Pidgeot, Poliwrath beats the Rhyhorn and Execute, and then Lapras clears the rest. The team of ballers I chose for the Pokemon Blue Elite Four are as following. Number 1, Haunter, with Thunderbolt, Explosion, Psychic, and Hypnosis. Number 2, Nidoqueen, with Body Slam, Fire Blast, Horn Drill, Counter. Number 3, Fearow, with Drill Peck, Fly, Mirror Move, and Fury Attack. Number 4, Poliwrath, Surf, Hypnosis, Blizzard, and Submission. Number 5, Victreebel, with Razor Leaf, Sleep Powder, Cut, and Solar Beam. Number 6, Beedrill, with Toxic, Rage, Pin Missile, and Twineedle. Haunter beats Lorelei's first 4 Mons. It was safe to stay in against Jinx since it doesn't have a psychic move. I try to beat Lapras with Poliwrath, but it confuses me, so I go to Beedrill to finish off the Lapras. I chose Beedrill since his death wouldn't set me back, and I couldn't afford to risk crits on my other Mons since they were weak to either Ice Beam or Surf. Bruno once again puts on a meager performance, and Poliwrath deletes all of his Pokemon. Haunter then proves his championship value by sweeping all of Agatha's Pokemon with Psychic. He then, in a bout of sheer sex appeal, proceeds big dicking by beating all of Lance's Pokemon, also pushing himself into that MVP title contention. His dominant streak is continued by thunderbolting the rival's Pidgeot, then, for the final crescendo, exploding on the Alakazam, taking it to the grave with him, and dying like a true warrior on God's path. I send out Fearow to bait Rhydon out, then go to Nidoqueen to try and style on him with Horn Drill. I managed to do it after a couple of tries, nuke the Executor with 2 Fire Blasts, then switch to Poliwrath on the Gyarados. I try to hit a Hypnosis, he Hyper Beams and misses. After he drops my defense with Leer, I switch to Beedrill to die to a Hyper Beam to get some time on the recharge turn. I send out Victreebel, miss a Sleep Powder, and get hit by a heavy Hyper Beam after hitting a Razor Leaf crit. Luckily, I manage to crit once again on the recharge turn. Poliwrath then defeats Charizard, and we become champions once again. This time I had a lot more luck, with Lorelei's Mons using setup moves which enabled Haunter to sweep. The same happened partially on Agatha, because her Mons rarely attacked me, as well as on Lance. I would have beaten the Elite Four anyway, but Gen 1 RNG being this random weirdly works in your favor in these games, since I had a feeling that nothing actually hits you. This fact alone gave me the confidence to just press buttons with Haunter. I know that this won't be the case later, but I definitely saw the opportunity to continue champing shitsters in the early game. This little boost of confidence and the resulting plan might have costed me in later runs, but you'll have to keep watching the series if you want to see for yourself. For now, we are adding these 6 ballers into the champions list and moving forward to Pokemon Yellow.
And these guys just flapping gums at each other any chance they get. The fight clock is brought to you by Modelo.
Instead of the usual 3 starters, in Pokemon Yellow we get a disobedient Pikachu, while our rival gets an EV. This made my Brock somewhat harder, but I still managed to beat it with double kick from Nidoran Male and a little bit of RNG luck, since Onyx kept using Bide, which enabled me to lower his defense with Leer. My Geodude then dies after a confusion self-hit brings him down from 60%, which I don't even want to talk about. Pikachu and Gloom deal with Misty, Dugtrio kills Surge's Raichu, Pidgeotto solos Erica, and Vileplume defeats Giovanni in Rocket Hideout. As for Koga, I start with Dugtrio, only to learn that in this game he has 3 Venonats and a Venomoth, so I send out Pidgeot to delete them all. I also kept my Pokemon at a significantly lower level than 50, since I knew I had to face Silphco before Sabrina, and Sabrina's cap is the same. Rival's team is also different. In this game he leads Sandslash, which I kill with Vileplume. He then also kills Cloyster and Magneton and puts Kadabra to sleep. Raticate then finishes Kadabra and Flareon for the win. As for Giovanni, Dugtrio earthquakes his whole team for the win, which he also does to Sabrina. And to Blaine. I beat Giovanni's first 3 Pokemon with Lapras, but the Nidoking uses Thunder on me, so I am forced to switch. Dugtrio then kills the remaining Pokemon and I go to fight the rival. Lapras kills the first 2 and almost manages to finish the Cloyster also, but I had to switch for a finish. Raticate does it in, Nidoking does the Magneton, and then Lapras comes back to nuke the Kadabra and the following Flareon. That means that for one last time we step into the Generation 1 Pokemon League. I have learned many things about the Gen 1 AI that I didn't know before, was completely repulsed by the bag system, and, if I may say, have played really well up until this point, if that can be said for Gen 1 Vanilla Nuzlocke. I also used the opportunity to champ some weaker Pokemon, and have somewhat planned out my champions for the next generation. There is some Pokemon that I saw could be OP in Generation 2, which we will see in the next episode. For the last big fights of Generation 1, I chose these 6 sexy motherfuckers to represent me and my challenge. Number 1, MacLeod, with low kick, submission, counter, seismic toss. Number 2, Pidgeot, with fly, mirror move, quick attack and razor wind. Number 3, Nidoking, with thunderbolt, thrash, blizzard and horn drill. Number 4, Kabutops, with surf, body slam, submission and slash. Number 5, Dugtrio with earthquake, toxic, slash and fissure. Number 6, Raticate, with hyper farm, super farm, dig and quick attack. First one is Lorelei. Mako beats the Dugong and the Cloyster. I send out Pidgeot to drop some hits on Slowbro, but it and Kabutops get brought to low HP by Surf. My last resort now is the Raticate, since Slowbro will delete Nidoking and Dugtrio easy with Surf. The Rat comes in and uses the mentally disabled RNG to wreak havoc on Slowbro and the Jinx. I then super farm the Lapras and manage to finish it after Lorelei keeps spamming Super Potion. What to say, the game granted me the win and I took it. As for Bruno, Dugtrio nukes the lead Onyx. Nidoking kills Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee. MacLeod beats the Onyx, and then Pidgeot finishes the Macamp. Against Agatha, Dugtrio kills the lead Gengar and Kabutops finishes Golbat with Rock Slide. I try to surf the Haunter to death, but decide to switch to Pidgeot for a finish after he confused me. He switches to Arbok on my fly. The snake glares me and screeches, so I switch to Dugtrio. He then proceeds to sweep the rest of the Mons with Earthquake, and I win. I start Kabutops against Lance to try and get some RNG luck, but get hit so hard by a Hydro Pump I start reconsidering. I go to Pidgeot and manage to finish with 2 flies. I kill the first Dragonair with Dugtrio after dodging Hyper Beam crit, then switch to MacLeod on the next one to squeeze value from him. He almost 1v1s with Seismic Toss, but Lance heals the beast so I switch to Raticate. Raticate finishes with Hyper Fawn, then Aerodactyl comes out. For some reason I forgot that I could teach the Rat Strength instead of Hyper Fawn for higher accuracy and power, but I guess it served me well so far. I switch to Kabutops hoping Fly will do around 20 damage and potentially give me a chance to surf, but it crits, so I am forced to sacrifice MacLeod. This enables Nidoking a free switch, and he kills with 2 Thunderbolts. He then also heroically deletes the Dragonite with a Blizzard hit, and I somehow pull through. Bringing a semi-abysmal team here almost cost me, but I guess this means I saved some OP Pokemon for later. Finally, I walk into the champion's room, ready for a fist fight. Rival Others just stands there, looking like he doesn't want it. He is smiling arrogantly. His mother has an affair with me. His sister's rectum is so destroyed that they started calling her the Black Hole around Pallet Town. Irrelevant, he is still my opponent. I move a couple of steps back, scream some insults at him, and we start the dance. He starts Sandslash. I start Kabutops. I make a stain out of him with Surf. He then goes Alakazam. I decide I don't need Kabutops later, and switching is risking crit anyhow, so I go for a slash and manage to get a crit for the kill. I stay in against Executor knowing he has no grass moves besides Leech Seed, and kill him with 2 slashes. I send Debtrio to nuke the following Magneton, then switch to Kabutops again to do some damage on Cloyster. I decide to sack him for a free switch after 1 submission, so Nidoking can finish with Thunderbolt. Nidoking then also finishes the Flareon, and we become the champions of Pokemon Yellow and Generation 1 respectively, beat the first obstacle on our journey of defeating all of the Pokemon games, and land a disgustingly efficient body shot on Generation 1 Pokémon Nuzlockes. All that is left is updating the champions list with the fresh faces of the last 6 absolute killers who, if I may say, look like the saddest bunch of mercenaries I have ever seen, but still cute. All in all, I was satisfied with my gameplay, if there was anything to be satisfied about. I guess I could have also wiped to any of the games, so it's okay to say that. I was at least glad I managed to champ some shitsters in these first 3 games, which could be of help in the later parts of the Mega Challenge. For now, I thank you all for being a part of the step 1 of my journey. And, mark my fucking words, I promise we will conquer all of these games like they have never been conquered before, and that this channel is going to the top of YouTube and, later, Twitch. Also, when I manage to amass a sufficient number of faithful followers, I will include you all, my dear audience, into some crazy polls and similar things about the challenge, such as voting for MVPs of runs, Pokemon nickname themes, etc. In addition, after the subscriber and follower count goes up, we will make a Twitch stream that will continue until we beat whichever game I am playing in that moment. So make sure to tune in for that before everyone else. Later you cannot be the OG anymore. I have a bunch of crazy things planned for the digital platforms. I will be the king of this shit. For now, like, subscribe, share and follow me on my Instagram. See you at the top, niggas.
Are you ready?